The International Monetary Fund, IMF, is projecting a 3.2% growth in the global economy for 2024-2025, with inflation dropping to 4.3% by 2024. However, despite these gains, the fund is seeing several threats to the progress made, especially the conflict in the Middle East, which it says could pose serious risks for commodity markets. The IMF made its observation in the World Economic Outlook press conference held at its annual fall meetings at the IMF Headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, October 22. Presenting the findings was head of the IMF Research Department, Pierre Olivier Gourinchas.
Now let me start with the good news. The battle against inflation is almost won. After peaking at 9.4% year-on-year in the third quarter of 2022, we now project headline inflation will fall to 3.5% by the end of next year. In most countries, inflation is now hovering close to central bank targets. Now, inflation came down while the global economy remained resilient. Growth is projected to hold steady at 3.2% in 2024 and 2025. The United States is expected to cool down, while other advanced economies will rebound. Performance in emerging Asia remains robust, despite a slight downward revision for China to 4.8% in 2024. Low-income countries have seen their growth revised downwards, some of it because of conflicts and climate shocks.
Mr. Gourinchas outlined the factors leading to the downside risks of global growth.
Now, despite the good news on inflation, risks are now tilted to the downside. These downside risks include an escalation in regional conflicts, especially in the Middle East, which could pose serious risks for commodity markets. Policy shifts toward undesirable trade and industrial policies could also significantly lower output. A sharp reduction in migration into advanced economies, which can unwind some of the supply gains that helped ease inflation in recent quarters. This could trigger an abrupt tightening of global financial conditions that would further depress output. And together, these represent about 1.6% of global output in 2026. Now, to mitigate these downside risks and to strengthen growth, policymakers now need to shift gears and implement a policy triple pivot. The first pivot on monetary policy is already underway. The decline in inflation paved the way for monetary easing across major central banks. This will support activity at a time when labor markets are showing signs of cooling with rising unemployment rates. So far, however, this rise has been gradual and does not point to an imminent slowdown.
The IMF said the U.S. economy will continue to provide most of the thrust for global growth through the balance of this year and in 2025, led by robust consumer spending that has held up through a wrenching bout of inflation and the high interest rates used to tame it. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.